This is the Digital Formula Podcast, a show about digital transformations, why they fail, and how you can apply the formula to ensure that your transformation program will create the expected results by aligning your services to your strategy, architect solutions well, and deliver them in an agile fashion. Welcome to the second episode of the Digital Formula Podcast. I'm your host, Roland Volt, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Eidengren. Hey, Mike, how are you doing today?
Hey, good, Roland. Good to be back.
Yeah, hey. It's episode number 2, so I'm super excited because today we're going to talk about application/technology rationalization. And we have a guest with us today as the first guest on the show. Welcome, Keith. Keith Mangold from Lean Scaled Architects. Welcome.
Hello, Mike. Hello, Roland. How are you guys doing today?
We're living the dream.
Hey, I'm excited. You know, I thought I was guest number 2, but I'm guest number 1.
Yes, you are. You're the number 1.
Wow. Wow. Uh-oh. Okay, great.
So no pressure on you. But maybe we start with a softball question, Keith. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, let's see a little bit about me. I've been hooked on the digital world for roughly 25 years now. As you can tell, for those on video, with the lack of hair that I have, matching you there, Roland. Yep. It all started, back in high school days when my parents got me those, Packard Bell SX 386. Remember those?
Yes. You could play the little games on it. What was it called? Lemmings.
Lemmings, yes. All I had was Tetris and Lotus 1, 2, 3, right? So, but the thing had a whopping 4 megabytes of RAM. I remember getting it home and installing something called MS-DOS 5. Like, it was just this box that was there, part of it, and I'm like, what's this do? Installed it, and crud. The whole machine didn't work like it was when it was out of the box. So I remember spending a little bit of time trying to troubleshoot that, actually going to the library back in those days to find a book and figure out how to troubleshoot, get that working. Little did I know I'd make a career out of doing that. Breaking and fixing things would be my whole career. So.
And nobody ever explained me why you had to press escape if you want to do a command.
Well, it's that same thing of why do we still have to do Control-Delete these days, right? For Windows, right?
Fair.
Thanks, Bill.
Fair.
So, yeah. So I would say outside of I went through, the professional career there a little bit, or getting started, I do things all over the place, just about me personally, scuba diving, cycling, working on getting my pilot's license right now, learning new things. Right now, I'm day 49 into my Duolingo streak. I was just practicing it before this, learning Japanese. Next year, we're going to a Star Wars convention in Tokyo, so I should learn a little bit of that, right? So, in terms of my own learnings, outside of that, I like doing some teaching too. I teach a Jattersize aerobics class a few times a week, and then starting on April 1st, April Fool's Day, I'll be teaching my first college course here in San Diego. Super excited to get that going, and a little nervous too, but should be an awesome ride. So,
perfect. So let's go a little bit on the professional side. What do you do? What's your current role?
I'm currently serving as the senior advisor manager at Lean Scaled Architects. Lean Scaled Architects, we focus heavily on integrating enterprise architecture, business process management, scaled, agile, safe solutions. My role specifically, with application rationalization, IT administration, heavily involves bridging the gap between individual practices and the tools that, we help use to optimize the software portfolios and improve system architecture. Find the balance between the practice and the tool that goes with it.
So tell us, Keith, a little bit more about what you've done over the past.
Over the years, I've done all kinds of different things on the IT side. Most recently, there was the privilege of leading some significant projects at the Make-A-Wish Foundation and WIS International Cultura Technologies. That's not an easy word to say off the tongue. My efforts there have been focused on all kinds of different things, from IT administration, application integration development, improving business intelligence teams, helping to ensure the efficient management of IT applications infrastructure, using those things that I'm doing now with application rationalization and enterprise architecture, maybe it didn't have a name back then as to what it was, at least that I called it at, but doing those things to improve their back-end systems and processes. One of my key products that I like to share about involved transforming the product management system of one of our customers to be more agile, reducing the unnecessary expenses, enhancing system security through the different tools that we put into place. Once again, finding the tools and the practices together, finding that balance.
Well, that seems that we just dive deeply into the topic of today's episode. So before we get too far into the rabbit hole, Keith, can you give us a little definition about what application rationalization actually is for those listeners who haven't heard that term before?
Yeah, I say AppRat in its simplest form is the process of evaluating, your organization's entire software landscape, looking at the big picture and drilling into the little details. It involves taking that closer look at everything, what applications you use, what their costs are, the age of the applications, how will they perform, and even how frequently employees use them, right? We all have that, oh, hey, we have a tool that does that, and the other person doesn't know that we had a tool to do that, right? So, the application rationalization has several goals behind it. It helps to eliminate redundancies. You might have multiple apps that do the same thing, right? We've all been in those situations. Wasted money, confusing users. Where do I go? Which one do I use? I have my preference. You have your preference, right? Bloated costs to do that. AppRat helps to build and understand, to identify your outdated systems. We know, software ages, right? I talked about at the begging, Lotus 1, 2, 3. I'm sure that's still in use somewhere, right?
I don't know.
Maybe not. Wouldn't surprise me. Some government thing might still be using it, right?
Maybe on the space shuttle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're also using the Packard Bell SX386 too, right? So,
and we're looking, without going too far astray, we're looking for spare processors, on eBay.
Yes.
Before they shut down the program.
Exactly. But yeah, that's the the outdated systems that not just make us struggle with how to maintain it. We got to find the people that can maintain it and the people that have the skills to do that, right? And that creates a hindrance to the user experience. It creates a hindrance to the organization and being able to advance their technology, right? Finding those different things that need replacement or upgrades, right? And then the other thing that I think AppRat does is, helps ensure the alignment. With each application we look, does that application help support our overall business goals, right? Let's ask the questions that dig into that. Does it help that you're investing the right tool and technology into your business that drives your company forward? So that's what I think, AppRat is a little bit. It's a little bit that spring cleaning. It's that way to get you in your closet, open up all the drawers, see what applications you have in there, see what socks have holes in it that you need to get rid of, right? Go from there.
Yeah. So my sock drawer is pretty full of garbage, Keith, and I think a lot of our listeners might be kind of fed up with all the tech debt that's stacked up with all the lack of spring cleaning going on, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about why this is important for digital transformation.
Digital transformation, it's about making your business smarter and faster, right? We've tried all building that fancy new addition to your house, but the foundation is crumbling, right? You're doing that add-on, but you got to make sure that the base is solid, right? If that base isn't solid, it's not going to work well. AppRat is like that contractor that's going to come in and look at that tech foundation. Is it solid before you start your renovation? I got to look at all the applications that I have in my portfolio today. And if it's a hot mess already in the system, if you're going to go through that transformation and build a more stable system in the future, let's look and see what old tools we might need to get rid of, or let's see what old tools we need to upgrade, right? Let's get rid of that tech clutter and bring in the new cutting edge tools. For example, what if your new AI system doesn't play nice with your legacy customer database, right? If that doesn't play well, you can use AppRat to help figure out that ahead of time, saving those headaches down the road. And then the other aspect too that AppRat helps with the digital transformation, as we know, budget, right? A lot of things come down to budget. Every dollar you're spending on every dollar you spend on some old, outdated, barely used system is another dollar that you can't put towards your new cool device or new cool piece of software that you're wanting to use to actually transform your business.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when I look at it, Mike mentioned before, tech debt is one of the things, but also, as you said, how do you get to the result that you want to have as an outcome faster, right? Or have a more secure user experience. So tell me a little bit about what is your approach when you go into an app rationalization project?
The approach goes all over the place. It could go all over the place, right? There's no one right way to go down the process of AppRat. It's not realistic to expect to fix all of the applications and technology at once. So what I like to do to start with is prioritize. We want to understand what capabilities are most important to support our current and future organizational goals, right? Operations and objectives. What are the most important ones we want to focus on? And what technology is providing those capabilities? Once we understand that, then we can focus on evaluating those applications that are in that category that are delivering the most important capabilities first. So getting the list of 5,000 applications, maybe narrowing that down to, maybe 300 applications in one specific category, such as project management or, product management, et cetera, type of thing first, and then going from there. Breaking that down into the smaller chunks, realizing you don't need to boil the ocean, first. You can't say, hey, here's all 5,000 applications, or maybe you have 300 applications. You need to narrow that down to 20 in the aspect, right? Find the category that fits and start from there, and be agile, adjust, and learn along the way. You might do the first batch and realize you need to change.
Yeah, Keith, I really like that approach of figuring out how to deliver the most juice for the squeeze, because, our listeners have got 100 things to do. They've got limited budgets, and they can't just do everything at once. Not everything is a priority, right? So can you tell us how you do this? Give us a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, at a high level, we want to focus on delivering better apps and capabilities, right? We want to solve the pain points, right? It's about not just looking at the applications and going, let's get rid of it, right? Let's focus on what real people are really struggling with, and finding a way to deliver a more better, is that even the right words? A better, more secure user experience, right? And so with those pain points, or trying to decide what those and determine and research what those pain points are, it's about leveraging different, user experience techniques to interview the key stakeholders, interview different business people, the actual people that use their hands or get their hands on the applications every day. Figure out what their pain points are. Ask the IT folks about security and other technical matters. Figure out unnecessary duplication. Talk to the finance people. Really understand what the cost of an application is, right? What are all the different pieces that's going into supporting the IT teams and the different tools that they use.
Yeah, because it really takes a village when you're dealing with technology, right? I mean, it's not just buy the license and we're done, right? I mean, people got to maintain it and operate it and so on. Yeah, and people forget about those costs, don't they?
And I think that's always a little bit of left hand, right hand, right? You built a server, you spun up an Azure Cloud or a Google Cloud solution, and it's running, right? And so that cost is just over there doing something. Then you have the application that sits on top of it. It has its piece, it has its licensing. Oh, then you have Bob that's sitting in the back room that's maintaining that you forget about also, right? And so it's the people, the processes, the technology, the finances. It's that whole full life cycle cost that we got to understand.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know you do have an example that I don't want to miss in this episode here of a project where you did app rationalization, didn't you?
Yeah, I could probably spend hours on even just one topic of one specific case study, right, of application rationalization, but I won't, at least for this chat. But one of my clients was a chicken farm customer, whole nother conversation on a chicken farm customer. But with that customer, we did some discovery on multiple applications that they were using, all within the reporting space. The finance team, the IT team was doing some reporting. We had the production team. We had the field team that is actually growing the chickens, et cetera. They all had different tools that were doing reporting in different ways. And so, we've all seen it, right? One person says, hey, let's use Tableau. Another one says, let's use Power BI. Another says, let's use something else. Crystal reports, all those different types of things. And it was all about finding a way to, hey, what tool can we use that is best for the organization, that's going to standardize us, reduce the costs of having to license, Crystal reports and Power BI and Tableau, you name it, right? Consolidating these applications to bring consistency across the board of the way that it was being implemented, the tool, how it was being used, and the support behind it. And once again, reducing licensing costs, right? Streamlining the workflows, streamlining the data management, all with the goal of improving that user experience dramatically across the board. Anybody that was new came in, was able to use, hey, we know all of our reporting is done one way across the board. Somebody new coming to write a report, no matter whether it's for the field team or the back office team, easy enough.
But that brings us to the halfway point-ish, a little bit past halfway of this episode. So we like to give our listeners a little break in between. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a little music and come back after a short intersection. But before I let you go, dear listeners, just think about how and if did you do app rationalization in your organization before? Is it similar to what Keith did? Do you have other criteria that you apply? And I'm pretty sure we're gonna dig deeper into criteria and other things that one should consider when doing app rationalization in segment 2. See you after the next break.
Are you ready to supercharge your team with Scaled Agile? Hi, I'm Christy from Lean Scaled Architects, where we architect outcomes. We're here to transform your team into a powerhouse of efficiency and innovation. Unlock your potential with SAFe training, starting soon. Dive into architecture March 26th through 28th, master product management on April 3rd and 4th, become a Scrum Master on April 9th and 10th, or lead the change on April 16th and 17th. It's a power-packed 4 weeks. Don't miss out. Jump in at leanscaledArchitects.com/safe-training or email us at info@leanscaledarchitects.com. Let's innovate together.
So Keith, that was a pretty cool example you gave us in talking about how we actually stay focused on the priorities. Can you give us a little bit more detail on how you do that analysis and make those recommendations?
Of course, yeah. When rationalizing applications in technology portfolios, there's a few criteria that we look at, right? But it boils down, I'm going to say, overall, like 3 questions. How good's the tech? What's the cost? And is the business getting value out of it? All stuff we talked about kind of a little bit earlier. Answering those questions, in addition to the UX side of things, takes gathering and analyzing data, right? We all have that good feeling that an application needs to be retired or maintained, right? But it's another thing to have raw data to back that up. We always like at the end of the day to say, hey, we have something behind it, right? So digging in and making those recommendations, I say having the data behind it really allows you to have a real impact when you're actually putting it in front of the executives, when you're putting it in front of the team to say, hey, look, this is what we have here. And I guess what a couple of those things that I look at is overall application, I would say security, complexity, usability, right? Is the app up to date on our security policies? Does it support things like dual factor authentication? When was the latest update, right? Are there any known security vulnerabilities out there, right? No one wants to be the company that's in the news for having a data breach because they're using some outdated software from 15 years ago, right? So let's look at that aspect of the applications. Let's look at the complexity. Complexity comes on many different scales, which is why it's complexity, right? But how many interfaces does it have? How many systems does it need to talk to? How intertwined is that application into the system? Can it just be ripped out? Can it be replaced easily, right? It's the more complex something is, the harder it is to maintain, and the more likely things are to break, right? So let's understand that part of an application. Usability, do people actually like using the app, right? We all know we've been stuck in applications that, yep, I have to use this app. I don't know why we've been using this, right? But I've been told, management says I have to use it, right? I know just if people like using it is a simple piece of data, but we get caught up in that tech, right? A fancy app that no one uses or takes forever to load is actually worse than a simpler, more user-friendly option, right? I'm going to use an example that I'm dealing with right now. I've been dealing with Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, for many, many years. They've been great tools to do what I do. And the work that I'm doing right now with some stuff, I'm using Canva. It's a much easier tool on a lot of these different things, right? I don't need to train other team members on how to use Illustrator and Photoshop. But just something like using Canva, it's a much more simpler interface. It can do a lot of things for the user. The complexity is not there. The security is controlled by the system that it provides, right? So you've got to look at those aspects of the different applications to do that. Those are some, I want to say, base starting points. Roland, I'll have to send you over some screenshots of a dashboard, for example, of an application rationalization that we've built in the past. And there's so many things about the reliability, the sustainability, the usability. How many tickets does an application have? Does it require specific skills? Does it have redundant capabilities? It's so many pieces behind it that you have to put into, a scoring system to understand what are your key performance indicators, whether an application is secure enough for your organization, whether an application is usable enough or too hard to use for your organization, or the technical condition is up to where your organization wants it to be, right? So there's not one easy answer for every organization for all of those things, for the business value, for your technical condition, for your usability, for your complexity. Part of that process is looking at that data, what is important to you, and adjusting from there.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point. And of course, Keith, when you send it to me, I will put in the screenshots into the video for those of the watchers,
Great.
who just don't listen to it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's not one size fits all when it comes to app rationalization. There's some classics, when you think about cost, for example, that you would look at, but it's just like process improvement, What does a good process look for you? It's the same thing on apps, What is the criteria for a good app that you have in your portfolio?
So, Roland, I think in the first part we were talking about AppRat, what it is, what you do, what the result is, and then we get a roadmap, right? Mm-hmm. Keith works some magic. He goes through some of the criteria you just discussed, and then we get a roadmap. So the obvious question becomes, well, great, we got a roadmap, but how do we bring that roadmap into reality?
Yeah, good question, Mike, because just building and just doing that analysis within the AppRat is just the first step, right? It's about figuring out with the team, if they want to go further and do some analysis on the underlying infrastructure. Do we want to re-architect key applications? Do we want to modernize them? Do we want to integrate, into, let's say, a hybrid cloud or on-prem scenario type of thing, right? It's finding a way to get that roadmap and be realistic about the organization's ability to actually get the value out of that roadmap or what your plan is, right? That means thinking about the agile people, thinking about the lean governance process, thinking about a service-based delivery approach, all those aspects that go into, hey, we built the roadmap, can we just stop there or not?
Speaking of stopping, I'm just wondering why you were talking about this. So is app rationalization a one and done exercise?
No, not at all. Not at all. Please don't.
Oh.
I never want to hear no. I never want to hear, yes, we did an app rat. Great. Thanks for your help. Move on. Right.
Yeah, we're done.
No. App rat tells you what's wrong, but it's not the cure, right? Like, as Mike was talking about with the roadmap is your cure. That's your next steps, right? Actually implementing those changes is where that real work begins. And that's where that roadmap is critical, right? It's figuring out what those alternatives are. Is there better, more cost-effective tech solution out there? Can we rebuild the apps and do a re-architecture for more efficient and scalable solutions, right? How does a re-architecture play into the existing infrastructure, right? And that's where I'm going to even say that AppRat needs to expand to infrastructure rationalization too, right? Just because your applications are there, let's look at the underlying, the routers, the hardware, everything else behind it also that needs to happen, and go, hey, do we have 50 different routers with 50 different pieces of technology? That should go on too, right?
No, that makes complete sense. And when you look at enterprise architecture as a discipline, this is where it came from, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to look and manage the boxes and cables back then.
It's the AppRat might expose just one piece of your system of that technical debt, right? The software applications behind it is the technical debt. We need to upgrade those old systems, those old databases, the old infrastructure. That all needs to be part of the plan as you build that roadmap going forward. And that's where I say, so AppRat is a piece of things, but there's application portfolio management, or APM. And that's where that comes in. Application portfolio management, which at some point maybe we can have a much further conversation in terms of APM and how that fits into it. But that even goes bigger into making sure that the investments stay aligned with the business needs just outside of that one little bubble of the AppRat project that you would be doing.
Yeah, I get a feeling that this would burst the time that we've allocated to this episode if we open that. So we keep it on the docket for a future episode.
Yes.
But maybe, and I'm looking at our little stopwatch here to hold us on track. I know there's a couple of questions that we still have. Maybe we do a quick back and forth on those questions that all circle around the what else. Now you've done your app rationalization, you got your roadmap, you do all the things that you just said, re-architecting, all that type of stuff. You mentioned one thing a little bit earlier. You were talking about agility and big frameworks and all that stuff. Can you tell us how you have used those to help people to be more agile, lowercase a, and maybe give a quick example?
Solution out there. Can we rebuild the apps and do a re-architecture for more efficient and scalable solutions, right? How does a re-architecture play into the existing infrastructure, right? And that's where I'm going to even say that AppRat needs to expand to infrastructure rationalization too, right? Just because your applications are there, let's look at the underlying, the routers, the hardware, everything else behind it also that needs to happen.
Good job explaining your project keys.
That, right? It was job security is what I was trying to get there, right? No. We're used to it in the software development cycle of that agility, right? But even with application rationalization, AppRat, we can use it to significantly increase our ability to respond to the market changes of the applications that we have and adjusting to those client needs quickly, going from there.
Yeah, and we already have an episode planned talking about agile and lean portfolio management and so on and so forth.
Great, Keith. We got the agility checkboxed, so to speak, right? So if we're trying to really help people respond to that change effectively, what else do we need to consider besides moving fast and being agile?
Beyond that, you have lean governance and lean process and governance perspective that needs to be taken into account, right? We need to help people and organizations improve their ability to use the technology. Effective technology leadership and change management is key to driving that digital transformation, right? It's you can plug in the software, you can plug in the hardware. That's just one piece of it. It's more about implementing the new technologies. It's about leading that team through the change, fostering the culture of innovation, and once again, going back to ensuring that those technological advancements align with the business goals, right?
Can you give us a little example on that?
I would say, I think about one client we worked at, DoD weapons research client. We did a bunch of training sessions on the combined usage of different tools such as Jira and Confluence. That was there to help the staff embrace their agile methodologies, right? There was the practice behind it of that they were taught within, the agility perspective, right? But then there was the ongoing processes and governance that had to happen with the project delivery.
Yeah, but there's also another item that we haven't discussed about this. Obviously we spoke about the roadmap. We spoke about how to, quote unquote, change the people, different topic for a future episode as well, and how to use technology more efficient. But what we haven't spoken about is how do we show the results? How do we create the necessary visibility so that everybody sees, yeah, that was a good idea.
Yeah, transparency, right? Leadership transparency. Not just during the transformation, but tracking that against the targets during business as usual, right? Like in the AppRat side, we used live dashboards and created KPIs for this, right? Probably with the screenshots that you might have showed earlier. It's finding what's most important to that organization. It's not just about vanity metrics, right? Mm-hmm. We can all create KPIs and plop a number on a screen all day and say it's great, right? But we got to find the most important ones. Let's find those most important ones. Let's continuously monitor their progress against our digital transformation efforts, and let's make sure we're actually seeing tangible benefits.
And by KPI, you mean a key performance indicator?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep. Correct. All the dials, right? You got to make sure all the dials line up and match.
All right, great. Can you give us a little example on that?
I know one client I was working on with an ERP implementation. We set different KPIs related to their process efficiency, cost savings, and user adoption rates. We wanted to make sure that they weren't just implementing the software, that what we were seeing at the end of the day was a true cost savings from it, and that people were actually using the software on a day-to-day basis, right? It's easy just to plug a piece of software in and say, here, it's available, but we wanted users on it. That helped us adjust our strategy in real time, pivoting when we saw that people were using a specific function of the software that we wanted them to use, or maybe a piece of software or piece of the ERP system was reducing output that they had, right? So pivoting on that, saying, hey, we thought this was going to be better. We need to adjust it so we can get maximum value out of it.
And I hate to be the party pooper here, but I'm just looking at the little stopwatch, and we're way at the end of our episode. So Keith, thank you for this wonderful conversation and the examples that you shared. I think it made it pretty clear for everyone what app rationalization is, what the approach to app rationalization. See, now I'm talking the same way like you, Keith, what AppRat is and all those things, and I really appreciated the examples that you gave, and especially the outlook on what do you do when you're done with your rationalization, because it's not, as you said, a one and done. But I think that the most important question that people now have is, hey, this is very interesting. How can I get in contact with that Keith person?
lsadigital.com.
Oh, well, that's easy. And I'm pretty sure you also do have a LinkedIn that I can put in the
Absolutely.
show notes so
Yes.
that people can reach you. Yes. And with that, dear listeners, and by the way, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Keith, for being on the show with me today. Dear listeners, obviously, we appreciate you being part of our new show here, and it would be great if you like what you heard to tell 5 of your best friends about the podcast so that we can grow the show and get a little bit more audience. Also, be sure to subscribe in your regular podcatcher of choice, that you'll always be informed when a new episode comes out. And with that, again, thank you, Mike and Keith. Thank you, dear listeners. I wish you a happy day, and we see you in the next one.